Okay, so hi everyone. My name is Mubarak. Um, I'm a software quality assurance engineer, and today we'll basically be looking at risk-based testing, what it is, how do we basically apply this, what does it even entail, basically, right? Um, I think one of the interesting thing about this topic is that maybe because I am the first person that has learned from this by virtue of preparing for this session, and I think it's going to it's the one of the beautiful part of this specific session because I just realized that maybe because I had known risk-based testing by mind and not applied it 100%, I have been putting myself under a lot of stress lately. So I think we should get started and see what it is. So basically, what is risk-based testing? This is literally what happens today in organization of business. We want to deploy an application. Now, let's take a fintech application, for example, right? We decide that, oh, this application, our customer needs to be able to onboard, they need to be able to log in, they need to be able to transfer. When they log in, they need to be able to change their password, they need to be able to do this, and all of that basically. And when it gets to QA, you just want to test all of these things, everything you want to test it. However, what risk-based testing tells you is don't throw yourself at everything at once. Prioritize these things. Oh, I know that it is very important for people to have a seamless onboarding experience, a seamless login experience, seamless transfer experience. Prioritize these things and then take them on the flow. Don't push yourself at everything at once and try to get it into place all at once, right? So risk-based testing is basically a decision-making approach that helps you focus on impacts and points of failures, basically, so you're able to move faster, right? And risk is basically the impact plus the likely, or multiplied by the likelihood or impact and the likelihood of it. And then what is the approach to it, right? So what usually happens today is a lot of us believe that, oh, they have tested everything on the application, which is the way. However, a risk-based testing approach looks at it from the perspective of, have we actually tested those things that matter the most? Did we prioritize those things and give them enough time for us to take a look at them and ensure there's no problem? It doesn't mean because there are some places that have the high likelihood of failure, you forget the other part. No, it just helps you maximize the utilization of your resources as well. Right. So we also have the business impact mapping side of things, right? And this is literally just putting a picture to it. Like, what are those problems? For example, when you deal with a payments application, you are possible to come across things around revenue loss because of an issue. Where we are dealing with applications that have login problem, you have user access. Basically, what we're just showing here is understanding what the effect on a module is and what it constitutes, literally. That really makes life easier for you, right? It makes it, what that basically means is understand how the impact of what you're doing affects your business. How does what I do impact the business, basically? And then we have a few risk categories. We have the business risk, technical risk, operational risk, and compliance risk. You know, and I said something earlier when I was starting this session that one of the beautiful things about this session is the fact that I have also learned myself, in all of this, right? Because all of these things is dependent on, understanding what all of these individual risks are. We tend, as testers, we tend to always forget to do that level of priority. They just want to go with the flow and quickly get it done. But as such, we get to be under a lot of pressure that sometimes can make us crumble, right? And as such, because there's no risk management in place for us, it always just happens. And these things has to be put in place by we testers, right? Yeah. So basically, speaking back to the risk is business risk. How does it affect your business? It can affect your business by revenue, by brand reputation, I would give an experience for this, right? Today in Nigeria, let's start from, I don't know if any of us remember that there was an in-air application that was launched a few years back, right? That's an example of business risk, right? The effect of not properly building or testing the application showed up by making the application lose a lot of people that could have used it and all of that, and it kind of like failed, right? That is an example of business risk. It impacts your revenue, you lose customers, brand reputation. Another very good example is the current PR in Nigeria for Range Rovers and BMWs, right? If you look at it today, as good as a Range Rover is, a lot of people say, oh, don't go near it, it's problematic and all of that. That is an example of business risk as well. Also, while dealing with all of this, right, it is also good for us as testers to identify where you want to come in all of this, right? So when you are looking at financial impacts on the organization, prioritize revenue generating, are they customer critical flows, right? Use also, it's also important to know that data should also come into this. So take, for example, I know that I'm giving this example now. If we have a transfer module that has a high chance that we will almost or always make a configuration change when we get to a new environment, it is good to focus on that and be sure that that feature has been tested so that when you get to the new environment, you can easily identify that, oh, this is a configuration failure, and all of that, right? And it's always good to let it drive your top testing priorities. Avoid the technical, let it be one of your top testing priorities. We have the technical risk, where you are looking at things around your system complexity, the architectures or implementation challenges. And one of the things about this that people, or we tend to always miss out, is that this deals with integrating with third-party applications, right? And what this basically means is a failure at one point can cascade into a failure all through the application, or can even cascade into a blocker that basically stops you from doing anything. So it's very important to ensure that while testing, don't forget your technical risk. Prioritize all of these things basically. Identify based on experience too is also very, very important, Identify based on experience, okay, for this module, when we deploy, we always have this. When we do this here, it always causes this. Identify all of these edge cases. Identify all of these pain points and try to see how to mitigate them as well. It would really help as well. So am I still on the call? And just for confirmation, you can hear
Yes,
me.
yes,
Okay.
we can hear you.
Yeah. So we also have the operational risk, and this is usually common to people that work in the SAS domain, software as a service domain, B2B domains, and you need to understand what and why every module you are building is basically in the system you are building it in. I used to work at an organization where we're trying to build some level of, we were building an application, and we sometimes or seldomly have issues where we realize that, oh, this is not working. We want to try to fix it. We are fixing that, another happens, or sometimes performance lags, right? Until we started taking the approach of trying to map out the dependencies of all of these things, right? Understand the dependencies on each other. You also need to look at things around your non-functional requirements. Sorry, please. Understand how all of these things integrate and they work together. And one of these things is, which is why it's good to understand this, is these are risks or things that can take, that can have a ripple effect across the application. Basically, you would have a situation where a failure at point A causes a lot of things and a lot of problems. So we also have the compliance risk. And listed a few here, and this is one of the things that has really been common in the domain over the past year, where testers, or not even testers in this case, even we developers, So I remember working on I think a fintech application, and people didn't understand the effects of not meeting with compliance. A very good example is you should never own an account today if you don't have a BVN or an NIN. And all of these things have an effect, Not meeting to compliance leads to, fines. Sometimes, situations like maybe organizational takeovers and all of that. And this basically means a lot, right? And part of this, right, is also getting yourself compliant, is upskilling or uptooling to some level of security checks, right? And some technicalities, basically. As testers, you need to get yourself familiar with how to test the OWASP top 10, basically, and ensure that you're safe, at least on those sides. Yes, you might not have the skill for overly technical security exploitation, but at least for the OWASP top 10, ensure you're on the proper page and on the proper standing for that as well. So basically, my next point is basically the risk matrix and the strategy, basically, right? And risk matrix is basically how you should think of it, right? And the first one is basically if it has an high impact and high likelihood, which means if this thing has a high chance of happening and it has a very high impact on my application, it's critical. If it has a low impact and a low likelihood of it happening, it's low, you can depend on it and quickly handle the criticals, the high likelihood and low impact and all of that. Quickly take a look at those ones when you come back to everything that has a load to it. And basically, what layer testing strategy basically says is layer your test. Start from your critical flows, then to your core functionalities, your edge cases, and then to every other thing as well. And you focus mostly where it matters. Hence the reason why mostly is emboldened, basically, in this case. I know I'm saying a lot, and I know I have springs in my mouth. So please, if at any point you need me to come back, please do let me know. So basically, adopting risk-based tests, right? When we want to adopt risk-based testing, you need to look at some things, or you need to understand some things. So one of these things is role-based responsibilities. What are the roles of everybody in a team? You as a product manager, you as a QA tester, what should you be doing? Understanding what all of these roles are and how they affect your input. It's very, very important, And then we also have trade-off conversations, which is basically you looking into your speed versus quality. You want to look at things that basically matters and compare them to each other to see how to prioritize all of this. Data-driven risk assessment is also very important because a lot of us, especially in software testing, I'm sorry to say, we like to say, oh, I've done it, we get it out and we move, including me. I said this earlier, including me. However, this deals with when you are working as a tester, right? Your work does not just stop at the point of we have tested and it's ready. It stops at the point where your customer or the people that need to adopt that technology or that solution are basically happy with it. Until you get to that point, you are not yet done, basically. Then another thing is for us to look into common gaps, right? Over time, today we have a lot of information. Understand how companies that do what you do tend to make mistakes, what led to their failures, take feedbacks, analyze all of these things and see how it makes you better as well. And then we also have the part for reviews. Review what you have done, review everything that comes in, review what goes out, basically to maintain a airtight. Also review your processes. That's one thing we don't do today a lot, right? We don't review our processes Try to understand. We have done it this way. Is there a better way to do it? Did you learn anything on the way? Was there a mistake? Was there something that happened that we needed to have done better or that we could have done better? Identify all of this and try to see how all of this helps you get better in your approach to testing. I think this is basically my last slide. I know I have springs in my mouth, so please ask questions. So it's not easy to switch to an approach, you know. And when I was preparing this slide, I was asking myself that have I really lived by this risk-based testing approach? And to a large extent, I would also say no. Hence the reason why I said the interesting part is the fact that I have learned from it first, and then I'm coming back to say, oh, even me, I'm not doing well, but I think it's something we need to do. Right. It's not easy to start out a new thing, you know, and especially in this our AI era. You know, you want to write test cases. If you know how to structure yourself, a test case that usually takes us 2 days before can be easily done in about 20, 30 seconds now. You want to build frameworks, you get done as easy as at the snap of your fingers. You know, all you need to do today, you just need to understand what works for you, resource that you need, and you know, you are basically at the top of it. Hence the reason why you need to be smarter, right? It's not going to the part is not going to hardcore testers anymore. It's going to testers that can strategize. It's going towards testers that can help do all of these things. And one of the first things is automate stroke fasting the boring steps by tooling up, right? Today, everybody's using AI, but you decide not to use AI because you don't see how it comes into play for you. You are not putting in automation in place for things. You just feel like, oh, let me just get it done and move on. On the long run, it comes by to bite you on the neck, and it just becomes a bottleneck for you. Also, identify application features and functionality, right? What this looks at is identifying your application features, the functionalities, how do they work, their dependencies, map all of these things together. And it really, I can assure you, if you are able to get it right, you have little to no problem giving out a quality application. Because when you understand that feature A as this to feature B, and feature B as this to feature A back, and you know, understanding all of the nitty-gritties. You know, as testers, one of the mistakes we make is we always tend to forget that we are like the custodian of the application. You know, there's this meme that says, I think we are the Avengers or something, testers are the Avengers or something. We tend to always forget that, and the fact that we forget it means a lot. So sometimes it's always good for you and I to understand the application better than the product owner, better than the product manager, better than the person that has actually built it. And it really makes life easier for us a lot. You know, today when you are testing a feature, you understand. Take for example, a login feature, right? How does your login feature depend on your transfer, or how does your transfer module depend on your login feature? How are they connected? How do all of these things work together, basically? It's literally you understanding all of this that makes your life easier and makes your approach better, right? Then we also have assign impact and likelihood, basically. What this means is for all of your feature, assess the impact and assign a likelihood to it. This is very important. Don't just say, oh, I want to do this. No, try to assess the situation. Assess this particular feature. Assess this particular model. Assign an impact that makes your life easier and makes your life better, right? Then rank and prioritize, basically. Having understood the impact and likelihood, rank them, prioritize them, then go at it, get at it, test accordingly, and move at a very fast pace. I think that's basically it. It looks like I was just breezing through. So I don't know if you have any questions to enlighten us if there's anything.
And thank you very much for this session, Bara. Please, if you have any questions, now is your time to ask. You can drop it in the chat too if you have any questions, so we can answer them.
Good evening, sir. Thank you very much for this wonderful session. It's very eye-opening, but it's also scary because it seems the whole world lies on the shoulder of the tester. They want the tester to be everything, while other people should be just what they are. Because I don't think it's fair for the tester to be the PO, the PM, the dev, and also a tester, while the dev is just the dev. If he gets something wrong, he can always go back to correct it because it's not working. Somebody else is there to test it for him. So, and you also make a point that the risk-based approach has to do with experience. Now, as a junior tester is where I want to come in now. If I am assigned something that requires me to approach it from a risk-based perspective. Now, is it not risky if I would, considering my knowledge, how small it is, if I'm asked to do something from a risk-based approach without having prior experience? Because you talked about having learning from experience. If a junior that I am just trying to come into this space, I don't even have that experience yet. So how would you tell me to, or how would you encourage me or advise me to go about this kind of scenario? What do you think I should do?
Okay, thank you very much, and that's a very lovely question. So, when we say, so let me bring it closer, is a lot of us say experience, 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 and I think there are two types of experience to it. Let me put it there. Or now, this is not textbook definition or textbook anything, but there's the experience which is basically, you gathering the work experience and all of that. And there's that experience that you learn through time, right? So both are applicable in this case. Now, take for example, you work in an e-commerce organization or you work in a fintech, it's not possible you haven't used an application before. Today, when I resume at any company or anything, one of the first things I try to do is remember my pain points using a financial applications, in financial banking. Today, why do you think a OP, a Kuda, a Pampe, all of these are fintechs that are growing rapidly? Why do you think they are growing? They are growing because they understood the pain points from people's experience. Everybody had a problem going to bank to go and do documentation. All of us did not want to go into the banks to go and do documentation. And these guys are saying, you don't even need to go and do all of those documentations. You don't even need to know where my office is. Everything can be done from the comfort of your home. And what I'm just trying to drive at is, it doesn't only live on, experience is built over time. And it starts from one point, right? It doesn't have to be until that point where you have a bucket full of it. Take note of it. What are those pain points you have when you're using your mobile banking application? What are those pain points you have when you are trying to order from Jumia? What are those pain points you have when you are trying to probably place an order from Temu? All of these are daily user applications. An organization built them, right? And sometimes we tend to work with it. Today, you ask this person, he says he works with a fintech, which means you are also probably a source of our problem that is causing our issue, or you are part of those that are providing the solution. So that is literally it. You don't have to wait until you have that large bucket of experience. Your pain points, your regularly utilized application also would come in and would really help at this point. I don't know if I've answered your question. I think that's Titila or something.
No, my name is Tillison.
Oh, sorry. Seriously, have I
Yeah.
answered the question? I'm very, very sorry,
No,
please.
no, no, that's fine. That's fine. Yeah, you have but it's still just I don't know. It's still scary, like, because the way you made it sound like now anything goes wrong with an application, the tester is like held liable. But that I feel that
That's
shouldn't.
literally the truth. That's literally the truth, right? And let me give you a very good example. You see, it's where you find it yourself. And which is why if you look at organizations like Microsoft, Google, Amazon, Fortune 500s and bigger organizations now, don't really judge with Nigeria-based organizations, judge more with international organizations. if you look at their growth ladders, especially for people within the quality, there's always going to be, or if you look at the top, you would always see a role called probably vice president or quality assurance or quality something and all of that. What does this tell you, right? It tells you that quality is not something that can be played with. Today, I think articles are more, I don't know, but if we look at there's this article around the plane, or was it a lead that had a defect, basically because of conversion. You know, they are probably working with metric ton instead of kg, and that kind of skewed it when it gets to the maximum weight. What am I trying to tell you is testers are like doctors, you know. As a doctor, you have to be careful of everything you do. Same thing applies to you as a tester. You have to be careful of it. You don't just assume this. And it's not like people are not being held liable. It's just that we are like that gate of everything today. Testers are supposed to be, you know, the Nigerian armed forces, basically, to protect what comes out from your organization. It's not an individual job, you know, but it is something that is assigned to a person. So it's left to you to now manage it. I understand your concern and I understand how it is, but at the same time, it's something that needs to happen, right? And we can't really sleep on it, in all honesty. So yeah, I understand the point of pain to say, oh, this. Today we've seen situations where something happens. Sometimes it's understandable, sometimes it's not, and you as the key tester will be held responsible. Hence the reason why you need to put a proper plan into it, a proper approach to it, ensure that everything that passes through your gates matches your organizational reputation. I understand your concern, but it is what it is. I don't know if I give you some level of comfort.
I mean, you didn't tackle it from the angle of the business, because if you hold something back and the business comes to you like their competitor have gone to market with it, but you are holding it because a particular feature is not, so how do you now reach compromise, knowing fully well that, this kind of things, I mean, just like, let's say,
So,
we want to launch a mobile application now, and then we know in Nigeria now that our our accounts, there are different categories to it. There's a current account, there's a savings account, there's the one they said that doesn't require much documentation, that maybe that account should just have like 50K in it, and then you want to sort of like build a mobile application for all your customers in those categories that I just listed to log into, because it's not a problem for you, because everybody would log into it and you will want to treat them as, oh, customers. But then how do you now hold somebody that is a current account that requires two people to sign, or requires, I don't know if you notice where I'm going to, because it's going to take much from you going through a risk approach or a compliance approach or whatever approach you are. But then this business are on your neck that, yo, I think this thing needs to go to market, because our competitors have gone live with theirs. And then because you don't want to sign off on something that you feel might backfire on you, and then they are saying, oh, it's the tester, it's the tester. But then I feel quality should not just be in this testers then it should be a collective thing. So I
yeah,
don't know.
yeah. It is a collective thing, right? But you need to understand. Yeah, it looks like you're coming from the perspective of I get the perspective you're coming from, and you see that part of, and you see that it's something a lot of us lack until we get to some point. And I think for those of us that are just starting out, it's good. Try to take up communication courses early on, stakeholder management, take all of these courses, read articles about them. And what it helps you do is it builds up that level of it. in you. So today, if there is an issue with a feature, what I do is to do a risk assessment to say, if we go live with this particular feature at this point, it could cause this, it could cause this, it could cause this. Is there anything that needs to happen? If yes, that we can do to mitigate, probably profile that. If there is, state it clearly, and you see what happens in situations where you are able to get these things right, yes, or you're able to put things like this to say, oh, this is not yet ready, but want to go with it. Make something official. That's the fastest and the best way to go about it. Once you make it official, say for example, I'm your boss, I'm saying we have to go live with it, and you know it's not ready. Do an official email to me that serves as a documentation. Say we have this problem, going live with it will cause this and this and this and this. Even what that basically means is you are telling me that if we erred on this part, we are going on a destructive part. And what usually happens, this is a situation I found myself. What happens is when this happens and it becomes a big thing to say, oh, this one is happening, that one is happening, this and this, you have something to fall back on to say, oh, I clearly stated this earlier on before we went live, and this was not being covered, and it was, you have something to fall back on. It is totally allowed and totally acceptable.